Didn't expect my life to unravel over something as small as a phone buzz. That's how these things always start, right? Something insignificant that turns into the crack that splits everything open. We'd been married for 4 years. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. Just normal. Comfortable. I thought that meant safe. The night everything changed, I was on the couch finishing up a late assignment, half asleep, when his phone lit up on the coffee table. He was in the shower. I wasn't snooping, I never snooped, but the preview caught my eye because of one word. Miss. Just that. Lowercase. Soft. Familiar in a way it shouldn't have been. I remember staring at it, telling myself not to touch it, that if I trusted him, and I did, that meant turning away. Letting it be. Then another message came. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same as last time? My stomach dropped like I'd stepped off a cliff. I told myself there had to be context. A coworker. A misunderstanding. But my hands were already moving, picking up the phone. It wasn't locked. He'd always said he had nothing to hide. Maybe that was the most terrifying part. I opened the messages. The contact name hit me before the words did. My sister. I didn't breathe. I don't think I blinked either. I just scrolled. There wasn't anything vague about it. No room for interpretation. The messages were intimate, casual, practiced. This wasn't new. This was a rhythm. A routine. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Plans that didn't include me. References to nights I thought he was working late. And photos. Not explicit, but enough to erase any last thread of doubt. I could literally feel my heartbeat in my fingertips as I scrolled back weeks, months. Every message was another piece of proof that my life wasn't what I thought it was. The worst part? They talked about me. Not cruelly at first. Just dismissively. Like I was background noise in my own marriage. She's been stressed lately. I almost feel bad. Almost. I heard the shower shut off and I froze, the phone still in my hands. My first instinct wasn't anger, it was panic. Like I'd done something wrong by seeing the truth. I put the phone back exactly where it was and sat there, staring at nothing. He walked out a minute later, towel around his waist, like any normal night. Like my world hadn't just ended. Hey, he said casually, running a hand through his damp hair. You still up? I looked at him, and for the first time I didn't recognize him. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was. My voice didn't sound like mine when I spoke. Why is my sister texting you that she misses you at midnight? He went completely still. And just like that, everything shifted. He didn't deny it. Not immediately. Not convincingly. There was that pause, that calculation. And I knew. Where did you see that? He asked instead. That was his first mistake. The conversation spiraled from there. Half-truths. It wasn't serious. It just happened. We didn't mean to hurt you. We. He said we. I laughed when he said that. Actually laughed. It sounded broken even to me. I asked how long. He said a few months. His phone said otherwise. Eventually, he admitted it had been almost a year. A year. A year of family dinners. Holidays. Group texts. Birthdays. Inside jokes. A year of me trusting them both completely. I remember sitting down because my legs literally couldn't hold me anymore. You brought her into our house, I said quietly. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. I don't remember packing a bag, but I must have, because the next clear moment I have is sitting in my car, parked down the street from my parents' house. I didn't even question going there. It was instinct. That's what you do when something breaks, you go home. Except a home wasn't what I thought it was either. My mom answered the door looking confused. It was late. I must have looked like a mess because her expression changed immediately. What's wrong? I opened my mouth, and for a second, I couldn't even say it. Then it all came out at once. He's cheating on me. With her. Her face didn't change the way I expected it to. There was no shock. No outrage. No immediate, what are you talking about? Just a hesitation. A flicker. And suddenly, the floor dropped out from under me all over again. You knew, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked away. That was it. That was confirmation. I remember stepping back like she'd physically hit me. How long? She sighed. Actually sighed. Your sister told me a while ago. A while ago? A while ago? I repeated. She said it wasn't serious, that they were just going through something. My mom continued, like she was explaining a minor disagreement instead of a betrayal that had just blown up my life. We didn't want to get in the middle of your marriage. I couldn't even process that. You didn't want to get in the middle? I said, my voice rising. You were already in the middle. He was cheating on me with your other daughter. My dad appeared in the hallway then, drawn by the noise. I repeated it to him too, half hoping he'd react differently. He didn't. He just crossed his arms and said, "Let's calm down." Calm down. That phrase snapped something in me. Did you know too? I demanded. Silence. That was answer enough. I felt like I was standing in a room full of strangers wearing my family's faces. They told us they were going to end it. My mom added quickly, like that was supposed to fix anything. We thought it had already stopped. But you didn't tell me. We didn't want to hurt you. I stared at her. You didn't want to hurt me, so you let them keep hurting me? She flinched at that, but didn't respond. Instead, my dad stepped in with that same infuriating calm tone. You're emotional right now. This is a complicated situation, and families work through things like this. That's when I realized something even worse than the affair. They weren't on my side. Not in the way that mattered. Are you seriously telling me to forgive them? I asked. We're saying don't make a permanent decision over something that can be repaired, he replied. Repaired. I couldn't even breathe. It's your husband, my mom added softly. And your sister. We can't just tear the family apart over this. I actually laughed again. That broken, hollow sound. Oh, don't worry, I said. I won't be the one tearing it apart. They exchanged a look, like I was being unreasonable. Like I was the problem. That's when it hit me, the full crushing weight of it. I wasn't just losing a marriage. I was losing everything. Or maybe it had already been gone without me realizing. I didn't stay long after that. I couldn't. Every second in that house felt suffocating. My mom tried to get me to sit down to talk it through. My dad kept repeating that I'd regret cutting people off in anger. But it didn't feel like anger. It felt like clarity. I walked out before they could say anything else. That night, I blocked my husband, then my sister, then my parents. I thought I'd feel immediate relief. Closure. Something solid. Instead, it was just quiet. Too quiet. The next morning, the messages started coming in from numbers I hadn't blocked yet. Extended family. Mutual friends. Your mom is worried. Your sister is a mess. You should hear them out. Hear them out. Like I hadn't already heard enough. I ignored all of it until one message slipped through that made my hands shake. It was from my sister. A new number. I know you're angry, but there's something you don't know. We need to talk. It will change everything. I stared at the screen for a long time. Because there's always something you don't know, right? Always one more layer. One more excuse. One more twist. I almost deleted it. I should have. But instead, I typed back. Fine. One chance. Say it. The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. Stopped. Started again. And then her reply came through. And the second I read it, I realized cutting them off might not be enough. But instead, I typed back. Fine. One chance. Say it. The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. Stopped. Started again. And then her reply came through. He was going to leave you. They were pushing him to do it. I didn't just fall into this. I was told things about you. Things that aren't true. And now I think they were lying to both of us. I read it once. Then again. It didn't make sense. Not in a way that felt real. It felt like one of those desperate, last-ditch attempts to rewrite a story that already had a clear ending. I almost turned my phone off. Almost. Instead, I typed. What are you talking about? 3 dots appeared again. Stayed longer this time. Can I call you? No. Absolutely not. I stared at the word on my screen, my thumb hovering over send. My chest felt tight in that way it had all night, like I couldn't get a full breath no matter how hard I tried. No, I typed back. You said it would change everything. So say it. Another pause. Longer. I pictured her wherever she was, probably at our parents' house, or maybe still at my house, with him. That thought made my stomach twist so hard I had to swallow back nausea. Finally, another message came through. They told me you were already cheating. Everything inside me went completely still. I blinked. Once. Twice. What? I wrote. The response came faster now, like a dam had broken. Mom said she'd seen messages on your laptop. Dad said you'd been sneaking around. They told me you were unhappy, that you were already with someone else, that you just hadn't said anything yet. My fingers went cold. I could actually hear my dad's voice in my head, calm and certain. I could picture my mom saying it softly, like she was trying to protect someone. But not me. They said he was miserable, my sister continued. That you were pulling away. That you didn't want the marriage anymore but didn't want to be the one to leave. They said you'd already emotionally checked out. I laughed under my breath, but there was no humor in it. That's insane, I typed. That's what I'm starting to think now. Starting. I shot back. Starting now. Because things didn't add up. I almost threw my phone across the room. Didn't add up? It took her a year of sleeping with my husband for things to not add up? What exactly didn't add up? I demanded. There was a delay before her answer came, and when it did, it was slower. More careful. You weren't acting like someone who was cheating. You were normal. More than normal. You kept trying. With him. With us. You didn't look guilty. You looked tired. My throat tightened. And he never wanted to talk about it in detail, she added. Whenever I brought you up, he'd shut it down or change the subject. At first, I thought that meant he still cared about you. But now. Now what? Now I think he just didn't want me to question it. There it was. A crack in her certainty. Late. Useless. But real. I leaned back against the wall behind me, phone still clutched in my hand. Who started it? I asked. Be honest for once in your life. That message sat for a long time. Long enough that I thought maybe she wouldn't answer. Long enough that I almost didn't want her to. But then, he did. Something in my chest shifted. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just a hollow confirmation. He came to me first, she continued. He said you'd been distant for months. That he felt invisible. That he tried talking to you and you shut him down. He told me you didn't love him anymore. Each word felt like a small, precise cut. Did you ever ask me? I typed. No response. Did you ever ask me if any of that was true? Still nothing. The silence said everything. You didn't, I wrote. Of course you didn't. Because that would have required you to care about me more than you cared about him. Her reply came back immediately this time. That's not fair. I laughed. Out loud this time, sharp and bitter. Not fair. I repeated. You slept with my husband for a year and you want to talk about fair? There was no response to that. I stood up, pacing the small room I'd barely registered entering. It was a friend's guest room. I'd texted her sometime after leaving my parents' house, and she'd told me to come over without asking questions. She'd left early for work, leaving me alone with everything that had just detonated in my life. My phone buzzed again. I'm not saying what I did was okay. I know it's not. I know I destroyed everything. But I need you to understand that I didn't think I was stealing him from you. My grip tightened. I wasn't losing him, I typed slowly. You were taking him. That's not what I thought at the time. I don't care what you thought, I snapped. You're not stupid. You knew he was married. You knew he was my husband. That should have been enough. Another pause. Then. There's more. My stomach dropped again. Of course there was more. There always is, I muttered, typing it out a second later. What? Mom and Dad weren't just aware of it. They were talking to him. The air felt like it got thinner. What do you mean? I asked, even though a part of me already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. He would go over there. Alone. At first, I thought it was weird, but they said they were trying to support him because of what you were supposedly putting him through. I stopped pacing. Stopped breathing. Support him, I repeated. They told him not to rush into anything. Not to file for divorce right away. They said it would look bad if it came out the way it was. They told him to wait until things were quiet so it wouldn't blow back on the family. My hands started shaking. That's not real, I whispered, even though I was reading it in black and white on my screen. I heard it. More than once. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, knees pulled halfway to my chest. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. It came out softer than I intended. Because I don't think they expected you to find out like this. That sentence landed like a final piece sliding into place. They were planning it, I said. I think so. A cold, creeping realization spread through me. All those times my mom had asked if everything was okay in that vague, probing way. All those comments about how relationships change over time, how you have to adapt, how sometimes love looks different. All those conversations that had seemed slightly off, slightly pointed, but I'd brushed them aside because they were my parents. Because why would they ever be anything but on my side? They were waiting for him to leave me, I said slowly. I think they were trying to make it controlled. Controlled. Managed. Like my life was a situation to handle. A narrative to curate. I felt something inside me harden in a way that went beyond anger. It was colder than that. Clearer. Did they know about you? I asked. There was a longer hesitation here. Then. Not at first. Of course. But I think Mom figured it out before I told her. My eyes closed. And she said nothing, I whispered. She said it was complicated. That feelings happen. I exhaled slowly, my hands limp in my lap now, the phone resting against my leg. So let me get this straight, I said. He lies to you about me cheating. My parents back it up. You start an affair with him. They find out, or suspect. And instead of stopping it, they, what? Manage it? Encourage him to leave me cleanly. I don't know if they encouraged it, she said. But they definitely didn't stop it. That felt like the same thing. Silence settled between us again. Heavy. Suffocating. Then my phone buzzed once more. A new message. Not from her. From a number I didn't recognize. I opened it before I could think better of it. We need to talk. This has gotten out of control. I knew immediately who it was. Him. I stared at the message, my pulse picking up again. Another one came seconds later. Your sister is saying things that aren't accurate. Of course she was. Of course he'd frame it that way. Of course he'd try to get ahead of it. I let out a slow breath and typed one word. Explain. That typing bubble appeared faster than it ever had before. I never told her you were cheating. My jaw tightened. He said you started it, I typed back. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? The pause stretched longer this time. Deliberate. Calculated. Our marriage hasn't been right for a long time. You know that. Deflection. Classic. Answer the question. Another pause. Then. Your parents were worried about you. That wasn't even remotely close to what I asked. Did you tell her I was cheating? I repeated. This time the delay felt intentional. Then finally. I said we were having problems. She took it further. I felt something snap into place. Clarity again. Colder this time. Don't contact me again, I typed. I blocked the number before he could respond. Then I stared back at my chat with my sister. The last thing she'd said still sitting there unanswered. What are we going to do? We. That word again. My fingers hovered over the screen. And for the first time since all of this started, I realized something I hadn't let myself fully process yet. It wasn't just about what they'd done. It was about what came next. Because this wasn't contained anymore. There were lies layered on lies. People talking. Stories forming. Versions of me being passed around that I hadn't even heard yet. And if what she was saying was true, my own parents had helped build those versions. I typed slowly, deliberately. There is no we. I watched the message send. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. But this time, I didn't wait to see what she'd say. I exited the conversation, locked my phone, and sat there in the quiet, staring at nothing. Because for the first time, the reality wasn't just that my life had fallen apart. It was that the people I would have turned to rebuild it might have been the ones who broke it in the first place. And somehow I knew. This still wasn't the bottom of it. Final update. I didn't reply to my sister after that. For the first time since everything blew up, I didn't feel the need to chase answers. Not from her. Not from him. Not even from my parents. Because something had shifted. All the confusion, the what-ifs, the desperate need to understand. It just burned out. What was left felt colder, heavier, but also clearer. I stopped asking why, and started asking what now. The next 2 days were quiet. Too quiet. I stayed at my friend's place, barely leaving the guest room except for coffee and the occasional forced conversation so she wouldn't worry. I told her enough that she understood the situation, but not all of it. I wasn't ready to say it out loud. The part about my parents. That still felt like something unreal, like if I said it too clearly it would solidify into something permanent. But the outside world didn't stay quiet. It never does. By the third day, I realized something was off. It started small. A message from a mutual acquaintance. Not someone close enough to check on me, but not distant enough to ignore. "Hey, I heard you guys are splitting. I hope you're okay." Sounds like it got messy. Messy. That word stuck with me. I asked, carefully, "What did you hear?" There was a pause. Then, I don't want to get involved, but I was told there was stuff on both sides. On both sides. My stomach dropped in a way that felt different from before. Less like a shock. More like confirmation of something ugly I'd already suspected. "Thanks," I replied and left it there. But I didn't leave it alone. Over the next few hours, I heard the same thing. Subtly, indirectly, but consistently. Complicated situation. Not as one-sided as people think. They both made mistakes. I didn't feel angry right away. I felt studied. Like I was suddenly aware of a version of me moving through conversations I wasn't part of. By that night, I knew exactly what was happening. They were getting ahead of it. I didn't call my sister. I didn't call my parents. I called someone else. My husband's older brother. We'd never been particularly close, but we'd always been on decent terms. More importantly, he was the kind of person who didn't tolerate nonsense and didn't play family politics. When he answered, his voice was careful. "Hey, I was wondering if you'd reach out." Good. That meant he'd heard something too. "I need you to tell me exactly what you've been told," I said. No small talk. No preamble. There was a pause on the other end. Then he sighed. "I was told you'd been checked out for a while. That there might have been someone else. That things between you two were basically over before anything happened." There it was. Clean. Simple. Controlled. A neat little narrative. "Do you believe that?" I asked. His answer came without hesitation. "No." That single word hit harder than I expected. "Why not?" I asked quietly. "Because I know my brother," he said. "And I've seen the messages he's been sending around trying to explain things. He's doing damage control, not telling the truth." I closed my eyes for a second. "Good," I said. "Because I have proof." That was the moment everything changed. Not emotionally. Strategically. Up until then, I'd been reacting. Trying to process. Trying to survive what happened. But now I understood what they were doing. They weren't just hoping I'd forgive them. They were making sure that if I didn't, I'd be the one who looked unreasonable. Dramatic. Emotional. At fault. Something inside me went completely still. And for the first time since that night on the couch, I felt in control. I spent the next day going through everything. I hadn't touched his phone again after that night, but I didn't need to. I had already taken screenshots. I didn't even remember doing it at the time. It must have been instinct. But there they were. Conversations. Dates. Messages that clearly showed how long it had been going on. Messages that proved he lied about the timeline. Messages that showed her acknowledging me as his wife while still planning to meet him. And most importantly, messages where he described our marriage in ways that directly contradicted what he'd been telling other people. Not once did he say I was cheating. Not once. In fact, in several messages, he said the opposite. She'd never do that. I stared at that line for a long time. It was almost laughable. He knew exactly who I was. He just chose to use that against me. I didn't blast it publicly. That wasn't the move. Instead, I sent it selectively. First to his brother. Then to 2 mutual friends I knew would talk, but would also verify before spreading anything. Then, after a long pause, I sent a single, carefully curated set of screenshots to my parents. No message attached. Just the truth. They called within minutes. I didn't answer. They called again. And again. Then my mom texted. "This isn't what it looks like." I actually smiled at that. That line. That exact line. It's exactly what it looks like, I replied. My phone rang immediately after I hit send. This time I answered. Her voice was frantic. Honey, please, just listen. No, I said calm. You can listen. Silence. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was talking to my mother. I know what you told people, I continued. I know what you told her. And I know what you didn't tell me. That's not. I have proof, I cut in. Not assumptions. Not feelings. Proof. She went quiet. In the background, I could hear my dad's voice low, asking what I said. You don't get to spin this into something it's not, I said. You knew. You protected him. And now you're trying to protect yourselves. That's not fair. It's accurate, I said. Another silence. He took the phone then. Listen carefully, my dad said, his tone shifting into that familiar controlled calm. You are making this worse than it needs to be. Families survive things like this. Not this family, I said. And I meant it. A week later, I filed for divorce. I didn't tell them beforehand. They found out the same way everyone else did, through notice. That's when the tone changed. No more calm. No more be mature. Suddenly it was urgency. Panic. My sister tried again. Calls. Messages. Voicemails where she cried, where she said she'd lost everything, where she said she didn't know how it got this far. My mom showed up at my friend's house once. I didn't go outside. I watched from the window as she stood there for 10 minutes, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, and for a moment, I almost went down. Almost. But then I remembered standing in that doorway, telling her the worst moment of my life, and watching her not react. I stayed where I was. She eventually left. The divorce itself? Not clean. Not quick. But inevitable. He tried, at first, to push back, to negotiate, to soften things, to suggest mediation, for the sake of respect. That ended the moment my lawyer presented the timeline. The real one. After that, something in him shifted too. Less confident. Less controlled. More desperate. It didn't matter. I wasn't there anymore. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not in any way that could be reached. I wish I could say there was some dramatic final confrontation. A moment where everything exploded and everyone said exactly what they deserved to hear. But real endings aren't like that. They're quieter. Colder. Final in a way that doesn't need words. The last message I ever got from my sister came the night before the paperwork was finalized. I almost didn't open it. But I did. I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. I just need you to know. I see it now. All of it. And if I could undo it, I would. I read it once. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Because the truth was, I didn't need her to see it now. I needed her to have seen it then. And she didn't. None of them did. Or worse. They did. And chose differently anyway. It's been 6 months. I have my own place now. Smaller. Quieter. Entirely mine. Sometimes it still hits me, random moments like when I pass a restaurant we used to go to, or when my phone lights up and for half a second I expect it to be someone I no longer have. But more often than not, it doesn't hurt the way it used to. It just is. A closed door. A finished chapter. People still ask sometimes if I regret cutting them off. If I think eventually I'll reconcile. If time will heal things. I always give the same answer. No. Not because I'm bitter. Not because I'm holding on to anger. But because I finally understand something I didn't before. Forgiveness isn't the same as access. And just because you can make peace with something, doesn't mean you have to let it back into your life. So that's the ending. No big reconciliation. No dramatic revenge. Just truth coming out. And me walking away from everything that broke it. And choosing, for the first time in a long time, not them, but me. I hope my story touched you. Be sure to like and subscribe for more.